Hello everyone, my name is Jyoti Upadhyay and welcome to one of the best channels for history optional preparation. Now, currently we are on a mission to complete major chunks of paper 1 through PYQs by the first week of February. Now, the way we are covering it is through PYQs because it not only gives you an idea about the contents of the topic, but it also tells you about what kind of questions come from the topic and how to approach those questions. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, then subscribe immediately. It also gives me an incentive to make more videos. So please do that. Now, moving on, today's the topic that we are going to cover today is the regional characteristics of the Neolithic period in India. I have already covered about the Paleolithic period, the Mesolithic period, and the Neolithic period. Now, the question that was asked in the year 2016 is delineate and account for the regional characteristics of the Neolithic period in India. Now, if you see here, there are two things: delineate, and the second thing is account for. Majority of the people, when they read this question, they would simply think that what the question asks is you have to write about the various regions and their characteristics. But here they have also mentioned account for. Account for means you have to mention the reasons why the characteristics of that particular region were as they are. For example, if you look for example of the northwestern region, for example Balochistan area, where one of the most important sites is Mehergarh. So if you say in Mehergarh there were mud brick houses, there were mud brick houses were there was indications of early agriculture, then you also have to say that why they were so. We will see it eventually. Now, what should be the model introduction for this question? So this question does not mention things like critically analyze, discuss, explain, and so on. The introduction for this kind of question should be, first you have to write a general line that is most relevant to that particular topic. For example, if you talk about the Neolithic period, the most important thing about the Neolithic period is to let the examiner know that you understand that Neolithic period is important because humans started taking more direct control over nature. They moved from environmental determinism, that is environment determining their way of life, to now moving towards agriculture, that is growing food in the place in which they are staying, and also agricultural surplus. That means more understanding of seasons and the kind of resources that are needed to grow those crops, which is also paving the way for sedentary life. So Neolithic period characterized by what? Characterized by food production, as well as characterized by domestication of animals, village life, settled communities, and so on. So that is the first thing. Second thing that you have to do is you have to let the examiner know that you have understood the question. So here what the question says is regional characteristics. So you have to write that yes, these were the certain regional characteristics, and the regional characteristics were because of these factors. And then finally what you have to do is you have to substantiate what you have understood from the question by the view of any particular historian or scholar, right? So here what I have done is I have written a sample or model example, but remember the best introduction is going to be written by you. Now let us see what I have written. Here it is: the Neolithic period in India marks a transition from food gathering to food producing economies, right? Which in turn facilitated sedentary life, domestication, and other related changes. Done. Next is, however, unlike West Asia, the Indian Neolithic age did not follow uniform patterns. So I let the examiner know that I know that yes, the earlier view was that why am I actually comparing it with West Asia? There was an earlier view among historians that West Asia is a place where agriculture began. Right? West Asia में there is a place called the Fertile Crescent. Fertile Crescent कौन सा area है? It's an area from Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt मतलब जहाँ से where we see the river Nile, जहाँ पे वो जाकर के diverge हो रहा है, ठीक है? The Lower Egypt से लेकर के if we draw a semicircle and come to the Persian Gulf, ठीक है? Euphrates River, Tigris River, अगर हम River Nile and Euphrates and Tigris को मिला करके एक semicircle में जोड़ेंगे, that is it will cover areas of Iraq, it will cover some areas of entire Iraq, some areas of Syria, some areas of Turkey. So this area was known as the area of the Fertile Crescent, a very fertile area. The Mesopotamian civilization was in this particular area. So इस area से this was a view that agriculture started here and then it diffused to other parts of the world. Diffuse means it moved from there to other parts, and that view also said that it diffused from there and it came to India. So Neolithic period को हमने क्या बोला? हमने बोला कि West Asian model जो है उसको फॉलो कर रहे हैं. बट देन विथ मोर एंड मोर एक्सकवेशंस दे केम टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस कंक्लूजन इज wrong. Right? India में there were several variations. But then why am I also saying about unlike West Asia, it was not uniform, because ये fertile crescent area में, if we see about the major sites in Neolithic sites in the fertile crescent, they all follow common characteristics, unlike in India. ठीक है. So हमने introduction में examiner को ये भी बता दिया that yes, we have this knowledge and we know what we are talking about. Next, it was shaped by, why in India it was different, because it was shaped by ecology, local resources and cultural traditions, right? And we substantiate with the view of D.P. Agarwal. He says that the Indian Neolithic cultures were ecological adaptations rather than replicas of West Asian models. Okay? So one of the perfect introductions that you can get. Now this introduction you can also do it in a reverse order. For example, you can write that the Neolithic period was very important. D.P. Agarwal has said about the Neolithic period in India that it was that the Neolithic cultures in India were, unlike West Asia, they were ecological adaptations and so on. फिर वहां से हम क्या कर सकते हैं, trace back करके हम we can lead to the body. So I leave it up to you that whatever you are comfortable in, do it. Now let us see about the various regions and what were their important characteristics. Here one of the first region that we are going to see is the northwestern India. हमारा मेन रीजन्स क्या है, इंडिया को अगर हम इकोलॉजी को डिवाइड करें तो उसको हम सर्टन रीजन्स में डिवाइड कर सकते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल वी कैन से नॉर्थ वेस्टर्न इंडिया, दैट इज द बलूचिस्तान एरिया, हैज अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ इकोलॉजी, एंड वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ अनडिवाइडेड इंडिया. ओके, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द प्री हिस्टोरिक पीरियड, सो डू नॉट ब्रिंग अबाउट कि नाउ इट इज इन पाकिस्तान एंड सो ऑन, वी आर नॉट गोइंग इन टू दैट. Next is the northern region, that is the Kashmir area, that has a different kind of ecology. Gangetic Valley has a different ecology. Central India, Eastern India, Northeastern India and Southern India. So we have divided the regions based on common ecologies. So when I talk about this, in the northwestern India, what was the most important site? The most important site was Mehergarh, and Mehergarh is said to be a site that laid the base for the further development of the Harappan civilization. The characteristics or the features of the Neolithic period in Mehergarh were, it was one of the earliest Neolithic settlements of India. कब हो रहा है? It was around 7000 BC. एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड. हमारे पास अगर हम देखें व्हाट इज द टाइम पीरियड, यू हैव टू बी क्लियर अबाउट द टाइम पीरियड्स. फॉर एग्जांपल पैलियोलिथिक पीरियड में अगर हम बोलते हैं इट इज टिल अबाउट 10,000, मेसोलिथिक पीरियड में 10,000 to 6,000, एंड दिस इज नियोलिथिक इज 6,000 एंड बियॉन्ड. ठीक है, दिस आर ऑल टेंटेटिव, ऊपर नीचे दैट कैन बी थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर नीचे हो सकता है. ठीक है, दैट्स वाई हम हमेशा जब लिखते हैं तो हम किससे लिखते हैं, सिरका मीन्स अप्रॉक्सीमेट. सो सिरका 7000 BC. One of the earliest, there was domestication of sheep, goat and cattle. Mud brick houses were there with storage facilities, which shows that already they had a kind of advanced knowledge of agriculture, because storage facility कब जरूरत है, जब हमारे पास agricultural surplus होगा. Right? Next is there was absence of pottery. This is very important. It was an aceramic Neolithic. That is, pottery initial phases में pottery was not there. Pottery developed later. Aceramic means absence of pottery in the earlier stages, and even if it existed, it would be very very crude form, maybe just handmade pottery a little bit, काम चलाने के हिसाब से. Next is there were organized burial practices with grave goods. Grave goods means earlier what they used to do is, people when they used to bury the dead, they believed that there will be some items that will be necessary for afterlife, right? And they used to bury those things along with them. So we also, the kind of graves that we found in Mehergarh show that it was organized, and it also shows that there were grave goods. That means there was also an abstract idea of afterlife in the mind of the people. So this all shows developed cognitive thinking among humans. Next is, it served as the bread basket which eventually provided foundation for the Harappan civilization. ठीक है, तो ये हमारा हो गया. Now we have to write about why. ठीक है, तो वाई में क्या है, यहाँ पर रीजनल फैक्टर में है, दिस एरिया वॉज क्लोज टू द फर्टाइल क्रिसेंट. हम देख रहे हैं यहाँ पर एग्रीकल्चर कब हो रहा है, अराउंड 7000 BC, whereas if we see in the rest of the India, it will be as late as, for example, 4000, 5000, or even if we go earlier, it might be 6000 BC, but that is also rare. But here we are seeing 7000 BC. तो इतना जल्दी एग्रीकल्चर, that too with storage facilities, it is said it is because of being close to the fertile crescent, जहाँ पर एग्रीकल्चर का नॉलेज थोड़ा और पहले आ गया था. राइट, दिस फैसिलिटेटेड दिस फैसिलिटेटेड डिफ्यूजन ऑफ फार्मिंग नॉलेज, ठीक है, बिकॉज इट वॉज क्लोजर. अब यहाँ पर क्या है ना, JF जारिज, ही इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, यू हैव टू रिमेंबर हिज नेम एंड यू हैव टू मेंशन हिम when talking about the Balochistan region. He has said that Mehergarh represents early farming community with clear affinities and strong local traditions reflected in indigenous architectural forms and subsistence base. That means it will be incorrect to say कि Mehergarh का agriculture जो है, it was as just like it was in the West Asia or in the Fertile Crescent area. So even if it was close in the Fertile Crescent, इसके अपने कुछ unique characteristics थे. समझ में आया? So this is about the northwestern region. Next we come to the Neolithic of the northern region. Here northern region we are talking about Kashmir. Now in Kashmir, what is the kind of ecology? The ecology is more about sub-zero temperatures, very cold temperature. So यहाँ पर क्या है, यहाँ का जो Neolithic site है, यहाँ पे that will have different characteristics. For example, in Mehergarh we had mud brick houses. But in the Kashmir Valley area, especially in sites like Burjhom and Gufkral, what we are going to see is there is going to be pit dwellings. Pit dwellings means that they will dig a big hole in the ground, and these holes were not just small holes, okay, they are very well built. You can just Google out the images, you will see ki these are very elaborate houses, jahan par kya hai, elaborate in compared to what the houses were in the Neolithic period. They also had steps, मतलब proper सीढ़ी है नीचे जाने का, and a proper courtyard and houses and rooms are built inside. So those are known as pit dwellings. What it does, it prevents from cold and harsh climates, right? So there are pit dwellings, sometimes plastered and with steps. Extensive use of bone tools, very important. In other sites generally we do not see bone tools. Why bone tools are important here? Because in the Neolithic period deer was found in abundance, ठीक है, deer, DEER, deer was found in abundance here. So when we have abundance founding of deer and hunting was going on, so bones were very easily available. So agar unko, if they wanted to make tools, it was very easy, it was a readily available resource. So a lot of bone tools have been found here. That was not a major characteristic feature of the Mehergarh period. There was limited early agriculture. Again, that shows what कि ये area भी kind of is closer to Mehergarh. So अगर diffusion ही हुआ होता, from one side it would have spread to another side, then Mehergarh में जब 7000 BC में वहाँ पे हो गया, तो यहाँ पर भी हो ही सकता था उतने पहले, but that is not happening. Okay, so there is limited early agriculture, again because of cold climatic regions. Later there is evidence of the cultivation of wheat and barley. Definitely we are not going to have rice cultivation here. Why? Because rice requires a lot of water. So the kind of crops that is being cultivated here is wheat and barley, again determined by ecology and local conditions. Then is hunting remains we have been found, for example, of deer and wild animals, and dog burials with animals. This is very important. Okay, dog burials with animals. In Mehergarh, I forgot to mention, it was goats. For example, I told you about this organized burials in Mehergarh. The main dominant animal that was found in the burials was goat. But in this Burjhom, Gufkral, in this Kashmir region, the main animal that was buried along with humans was dogs. That shows the kind of connection that they had with the domesticated animals. Okay, in Kashmir region more connection was with dogs compared to in the Mehergarh region, where they focused more on goats as a necessity for afterlife. Next is pottery developed, but again in the later phases. Similar to kind of Mehergarh, here also pottery developed in the later phases. And the kind of pottery that came up was pottery that was matte impressed base. मतलब कि matte impressed base is just if you Google out कि अगर हम एक mat देखते हैं, the kind of woven pattern, उसको if we put it on wet clay, the kind of pattern that comes, the similar kind of pattern can be seen on the pottery over there. The regional factor, why this happened, first I told you about sub-zero temperature. Then is continued importance of hunting suggests, because agriculture developed later, so continuous importance of hunting suggests abundant forest and faunal resources. The region shows independent adaptation rather than direct diffusion from Mehergarh. Fundamental differences क्या है? Houses, right? Mud brick, pit dwelling, goat versus dog, and the pottery. There pottery was much more rarer compared to what it was in the Kashmir region. Next we move to the next important region, that is the northern India. Northern India में यहाँ पर हम बोल रहे हैं Gangetic Valley. Now when I talk about the Gangetic Valley, remember one thing, that what kind of ecology is there in the Gangetic Valley? It is a more kind of riverine area, fertile alluvial soils, riverine area, a lot of water sources, monsoon is there. So what will happen here is, understand something, Mesolithic period में we did not have exact food production or farming, but there was the genesis of that. ठीक है, strong Mesolithic continuation can be seen in this particular, in the Gangetic Valley. The reason being, Mesolithic में focus क्या था? Mesolithic में focus was on foraging and hunting gathering, as well as foraging, that is accumulation of whatever resources that are available. Now in the Gangetic Valley, because it is in general so fertile, the natural flora and fauna is very easily available. Already there are several forests with trees bearing fruits. There is abundance availability of wood. There is abundant availability of fish in the rivers. So what is happening is, the kind of characteristics of Neolithic period here, they develop much later and they coincide side by side with Mesolithic characteristics. ठीक है, मतलब hunting, gathering and foraging, they also are a major portion along with crop production. Okay, so here what we have is, we have an important sites are Lahura Deva in UP. This is very important because one of the earliest evidence of cultivation of rice is found here. Next is Koldeva, Mahagra and Chirand. So mostly the areas are areas covering of this UP and Bihar. So here the characteristics is predominant rice cultivation, ground and polished stone tools. Ground and polished means घिस घिस कर उसको smooth कर दिया गया, ठीक है. Ground and polished stone tools, celts, azids and so on, which were necessary to clear the forest, because this area is a densely forested area. Now because wood is so easily available, animals are so easily available, इसलिए क्या है कि यहाँ पे the kind of houses that were made, they were made of mostly, the technique that was used was wattle and daub technique. Wattle and daub technique means कि इस तरीके से ना कि झोपड़ी जैसे बनता है, ठीक है, कि एक लकड़ी को वेव करके एक पैटर्न बनाएंगे एंड देन दे विल प्लास्टर इट विद मड, ठीक है. सो दे वर नॉट वेरी not exactly very durable for a short period of time. Okay, so those kind of houses were made here. Next is there were handmade coarse pottery. तो यहाँ पे क्या है, pottery, it is not as ceramic. Next is continued hunting, fishing and gathering, and there is a strong overlap with the Mesolithic foraging cultures, right? So I have already mentioned about this, and the reason also I have told you, it is fertile alluvial soil, monsoon rainfall, riverine ecology and so on. And because of dense forests took time to clear, because even though we are talking of the Neolithic period and there are advanced stone tools, they are not as advanced as they are in the modern times, right? So they require time. So that's why the settlements were not very close. There were sparse settlements. कुछ यहाँ पे हैं, कुछ किसी और जगह पे हैं, तो that's how it is. And here there is an opinion of K. Padaya. He says the region experienced slow and uneven Neolithization. Again, because of abundance availability of natural resources, so lots of Mesolithic hunting, gathering and foraging characteristics continued. Next is Central India. Now when I talk of Central India, remember Central India does not mean the current Madhya Pradesh area. Okay, we are talking about the Indian subcontinent in general. We are talking about the ancient period. So when I talk of Central India, I also include certain areas of UP, certain areas of MP, certain areas of Jharkhand and so on. So here it includes the areas of Vindhyan area, Vindhyan mountains, Belan Valley and the Narmada region. Now Belan Valley, just Google it out on maps. See, I cannot include many maps here because of copyright issues. So what you do is, you can listen to this explanation and just go and Google it out and see the image yourself. So here Belan Valley is an area mostly covering of UP Bihar kind of area. So what happens is in the Belan Valley area is very important, because this area in India shows chronological development of the Stone Age. For example, there is clear evidence of Paleolithic sites which gradually gave way to Mesolithic sites, which gradually developed into Neolithic. मतलब chronological evolution ki Paleolithic se Mesolithic se Neolithic developments, they can be clearly seen in the sites of the Belan Valley area, right? So again here the characteristics is okay, and the sites are Chopani Mando, we have Adamgarh, we have Bagor. So covering areas of Rajasthan. Bagor kahan pe hai? Bagor is in Rajasthan, so usko bhi hum kya kar rahe hain, usko bhi we are including in Central India. Now, characteristics is strong Mesolithic continuity. Why? Because even this area is very fertile area. Fertile area in the sense there are lots of forests. There is availability. There are lots of forests. There is availability of natural resources. There is availability of wild animals here. So definitely hunting gathering tendencies will continue for a long period of time. So strong Mesolithic continuity even in the Neolithic period. Next we have a mixed economy. Mixed economy, hunting, herding, limited cultivation. Cultivation यहाँ पे थोड़ा लेट डेवलप हो रहा है अगेन, इनिशियली इट वाज अ व्यू कि इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा लेटर डेवलपमेंट्स हो रहा है, बट this was kind of challenged by the modern historians. They are saying कि kind of बाकी साइड्स में जब एरियाज में जब डेवलप हो रहा है, यहाँ भी हो रहा है, बट देन फुल फ्लेजेड तरीके से डेवलपमेंट इन सेंट्रल इंडिया ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर वॉज अ लिटिल लेटर. ओके, next is there were temporary settlements, seasonal or semi-permanent settlements, again because Mesolithic tendencies had continued, sparse pottery, that is very less pottery, and gradual adoption of Neolithic tools. Reason being forested terrain, so it was very difficult to build permanent houses as such. Then is rich availability of wild resources, hunting gathering mein they also had to move from one place to another. There was less dependence on agriculture, again because so many resources were readily available, natural resources. Unlike the earlier beliefs, modern studies suggest that agriculture here was not chronologically delayed, but it was economically non-dominant. मतलब उतना ज़्यादा हमें ज़रूरत नहीं था at that point of time. V.N. Mishra, he has given the opinion that terms this as adaptive neolithization. मतलब कि resources वगैरह available था, but gradually Neolithic condition, मतलब gradual development of Neolithism. Okay, so just this much. Next important region is Eastern India. When we talk about Eastern India, the important sites were Golbai Sasan. Now I am not sure whether they pronounce it as Shoshan or they pronounce it as Sasan. So just Sasan, okay, just for spelling. Next is Kuchai and Birudhi. Now in this ईस्टर्न इंडिया में भी क्या है, ईस्टर्न इंडिया में भी we will have lots of abundance of water, so definitely we are going to have rice cultivation. So we have rice cultivation and fishing. Then we have cord impressed pottery, very very important कि unlike matted pottery, here we have cord impressed pottery. cord impressed pottery मतलब cord is what, कि cord जो wires are there उसको यूज करके, मतलब wet clay पे उसको यूज करके patterns have been made. So we have cord impressed pottery, that is a characteristic feature. We have polished stone tools. There are seasonal settlements. See, most of these regions have seasonal settlements because of resources, naturally available resources are so much that they want to get access to those resources frequently. So what they do is they avoid building kind of permanent settlements as such. So we have, and then also we have strong continuity of earlier cultural practices and Mesolithic practices. The factors same. We have riverine and we have coastal ecology. So when I talk about Gangetic Valley and Eastern India, I have differentiated them into two categories because Gangetic Valley mostly refers to the upper and the middle Gangetic Valley, middle Gangetic area, and the lower Gangetic area is generally categorized as Eastern region. Okay. Now moving to the Deccan, very important is Deccan mein the kind of ecology that is there in the Deccan is semi-arid and grassland. So earlier in the middle portion, if we see in the Gangetic Valley, we had Gangetic Valley and central India, we had lots of forests. Here what we have is, here we have grasslands. So the Neolithic sites of this particular area, they will definitely have unique characteristics. Now most of the Neolithic sites in the southern India or in the Deccan area, what they have is they were based on pastoralism. What exactly pastoralism means? See, pastoralism ka matlab kya hai? It means a livelihood, a kind of way of life that is based on raising of livestock. Okay, we definitely have agriculture, but then main focus, the main subsistence is basically raising of livestock. Just a moment. Okay. And when we are talking about livestock, what was the livestock that was there? We had a very prominent one was zebu cattle. Zebu cattle is kind of the humped buffalo, the humped oxen kind of, if we say. Okay, if you must have seen, that is the humped ones. Okay, though the cattle who have a hump, those are zebu cattle and they are indigenous. So there was domestication of zebu cattle. There was cultivation of millets. Why? Because millets generally grow they are drought resistant and they grow in semi-arid areas. So again, determined by ecology, we have the kind of crops. If you see in the northwestern Balochistan region and the Kashmir region, the dominant crop was wheat and barley. The millets here were ragi and jowar. Then is ash mounds, very very important characteristic feature of Deccan India. Ash mounds are important. Why? Because when there was pastoralism, that means a lot of dependence was there on livestock and cattle. It is said that the this dung, this cattle dung that was accumulated in one place, and it was set on fire. Maybe it denoted some cultural community event might have been going on at that particular time, or anything that basically shows that it was a central part of their culture. So the ash mounds that have been found are mostly the ash mounds that are remains after burning the cattle dung. So this is an important feature. Polished stone axes, handmade gray and buff pottery. Basically, that is, just remember that it was gray pottery. Okay, and then is evidence of communal cattle management. That is, as I told you about this ash mounds, so much amount of cattle dung was accumulated in one place. So definitely it was a community effort. Okay, so it might be that it was communal cattle management might have existed. So the factor was semi-arid area, and here the opinion of this F. Alchin is ash mounds reflect economic ritual. It might reflect basically economic ritual, social centrality of cattle. That means cattle was central part of their living. Northeastern India, finally we come to Northeastern India. In Northeastern India, Northeastern India क्या है हमारा, the major sites are Daujali Harding, and we have Sarutara. ठीक है, Sarutaru. Now what is the importance of this region? देखो northeastern region में the kind of resources that are available were different. We find a lot of jadeite tools. Jadeite क्या है? Jade is a kind of greenish kind of stone. ठीक है, that is not exactly found in the northeastern regions of India, but that is found in Burma or Myanmar. So it is assumed, and it is assumed as well as it is seen that there is a lot of commonality between the Neolithic settlements that are there in northeastern India with the areas in Myanmar, for example, or with some areas in the neighboring countries. So that is there. Characteristics में यहाँ पे क्या है? We have shouldered celts. Shouldered celts का मतलब ये है कि tools which have this kind of a shape. Okay, shouldered. Maybe here they are attached to some other tool. So this shape is known as shouldered tools. Okay, so we have lots of shouldered celts. That was a unique characteristic of this region. Unlike other Neolithic regions of sites of India, tools were also made of fossil wood. Fossil wood means, and it's very, fossil wood मतलब basically wood जो बहुत दिन तक compressed होकर के it has become fossilized. This is not rare. This is very abundant, and this is abundantly found in the northeastern region. So definitely a lot of tools were made of fossil wood. Abundant in the Garo Hills. There was cord impressed pottery, again similar to the kind of what we have read earlier. Then is due to hilly terrain, there was also jhum cultivation, very important. Jhum cultivation was not seen in other parts as a major dominant characteristic, but jhum cultivation was a major agricultural characteristic in the northeastern area, again proving the point that the Neolithic period in India was not uniform, was not linear, was not uniform. It was very diverse, shaped by ecology and other climatic conditions as well as cultural practices. There was absence of microliths. Yes, another very important thing, absence of microliths. You can go and see the previous video for microliths of the Mesolithic period, very important video. And then is many Neolithic sites in the region show megalithic traditions. That means that megalithic means stones. Okay, huge rocks. So there are places where we see huge erect standing rocks. So that might have again been a part of some cultural significance. So that is also a characteristic feature of the Neolithic sites of the northeastern region. Factors were heavy rainfall. Why these characteristics were there? Heavy rainfall, tropical forest. Tropical forest को काटने के लिए क्या चाहिए हमें? We need specialized tools, for example shouldered tools. Next what we have is abundant rainfall which supported, yes, their main diet was rice, taro and yam diet. Rice, taro and yam diet all require rainfall. So that means diet was again shaped by ecology. Here T.C. Sharma has said that there was similarity between northeast and northeast Asian Neolithic cultures. Very important. तो हमारे जो northern India and Deccan India जो है उनके features से ज़्यादा similarity इनका किसके संग है? Southeast Asian Neolithic cultures के साथ. Okay, now finally coming to the to the conclusion. Now, since this question does not mention critically analyze and so on, our conclusion should be simple. And already we have written so much, so depending on the word limit also, it has to be a simple conclusion. And remember, what I have done is I have written it in much more elaborate way, because I wanted to include all the facts. When you write the answer, you have to adhere to the word limit as well. So keep practicing answer writing. यहाँ पे example for इसमें the conclusion here has to be that you have to just summarize whatever you have written, and if possible substantiate with the view of any particular historian. Here there are two important historians. One is Romila Thapar, another one is K. Padaya. Both of them you can use either one of them. Just note down in whatever notes you have, wherever you have written your notes. And do not worry, whatever I have discussed here will be available on my Telegram channel. You can just go and see the link in the description. Now, thus the Neolithic period in India was not so what we are doing is we are summarizing. For example, the Neolithic period in India was not a single uniform revolution, but regionally differentiated and ecologically conditioned process. Each region followed its own trajectory based on local factors. Adhering to the word limit, you can definitely shorten it up even in one simple sentence. The more you write, the more you are going to understand the art of answer writing. Okay, how to summarize, how to precise things. Okay, now here what we are concluding with Romila Thapar. She had said that multiple pathways to sedentarism rather than single agricultural revolution. And yes, so what she says is what the meaning of this is that sedentarism, which is a very important factor of the Neolithic period. Sedentarism means village life, settled life. Because of what? Because of the ability of humans to grow food wherever they are staying. That thing in India did not happen. There are multiple pathways to it. That is, different regions had different ways of it. In some regions, in fact, Mesolithic and Neolithic continued very closely. Understood? So that's what she wants to indicate, that it was not uniform. Same as what the question has asked. K. Padaya has also said, he describes the Indian Neolithization as a non-linear cultural process. What is the meaning of linear? Non-linear ke pehle we have to understand what exactly linear means. Linear means one thing following chronologically another. For example, Paleolithic following Mesolithic, following Neolithic, following Chalcolithic. Okay, lekin we can see in some sites of Neolithic sites of India that this Mesolithic period continues even up to the Chalcolithic age. Some Paleolithic tendencies even continue here. Neolithic age coexisting with this. So ye clear jo hai one after another. That thing cannot be seen in many Neolithic cultures of India, regional Neolithic cultures of India. Okay, so that is what he means by saying non-linear cultural process. So thank you for being along, and I hope this was helpful. Do leave your feedback in the comment section. Thank you, and go and join the Telegram channel.